What is up and welcome back. Today, usually, I'd be showing you a match from my locals, but unfortunately, this week I were unable to get to my locals. Well, the locals weren't there. So instead, I'm gonna do some of a yap session. Well, a little bit of knowledge for the future at least. I'm pretty sure I mentioned in the last video that for my locals, I'll be having a challenge for myself. I want to win with exactly Exodia, so you're probably gonna see a little bit about that. But for context, well, for the future, I am currently looking into the format that we are heading. Well, I guess for the video coming up, it's tomorrow. With both Ryzeal coming out and Maliss, which both are pretty strong decks for what I understand. So currently, and for the context of this video, I am tinkering with a list that I think will be strong against both decks. And, well, also a pretty good deck. For the most part, this deck has been flying on the radar. I've been playing with it prior. And I still think it's a good deck nonetheless. And for building this deck, I am going for a different kind of mindset. Usually, you just look up some lists, make your own style for it, and do whatever. But I want to do it more meticulously, if that makes sense. So let's jump into the deck list first, and I'll explain what I'm doing. I know what you're looking at right now is as a monstrosity, and it's not really a deck. But the thought behind it is that for Ryzeal decks, we have the goblin cards, which is, well, the thought behind the deck. You're playing goblins. Being able to detach the cards of Dreadnoughter and, well, it's not Dreadnoughter in the English, is it? I can't remember. That's the OCG name, well, translated to English. So, but basically the thought is that them having XYZs on the board will have you getting free materials. Cards like Dark, cards like, all the goblin cards at least, will have you detaching to special summon, or revive from the graveyard, or all the other free stuff. Like, you'll be either forcing out some whatever destroys of the Dreadnoughter, or, well, be having them play awkwardly. And if they remove their own board for us, for some reason, to play around something, we'll just have, well, game, because goblins go crazy, right? And the second part of the deck is, Maliss. So for this format, I'll be going for board breaker kind of build. You probably can see at the bottom of the deck and this side. Yeah, it's something. Again, I want to note, this is not the final build, this is far from it. I am currently testing this to see what 3-offs I'd play the most. I'll be getting into that later in the video. But yeah, so for the board breaker kind of it, I thought, Super Polish, pretty common, Dark Rule No More, Droplet, and the talents. And when we are going board breaker, we often want to see Charmies. So I also put that into the deck. Like, the best card I could think of for this kind of format, cram it into it. And I already have a pre-notion of, Tour Guide is good, Fiendsmith is good, and the Goblin Buyer cards. I wanted actually to see how well they perform, for me at least. Because, different player, different playstyle, there's also hands, there's all different kind of things come into clash here. But I wanted to see through some hard data what actually works. So let's look at the data. So what we're looking at right now is me playing online on a simulator, of course, having all different kind of games. I've played versus Maliss, of course. I've played against Ryzeal. I've played against, well, different kind of decks also. A little bit of everything, just to get a feel for it. So what I've been looking at is my starting hand, and that's about it. So, of course, going second most of the matches, we're gonna see a 6th card that is not represented in this list, which I probably should have thought about when I made this. But we're looking at my win rate, my personal win rate, both the games and the matches. I at this point played 50 games, or in this case 20 matches, and it's been both and, you know, considering goblins not being totally meta and playing 60 cards, I wouldn't expect my win rate to be that good, you know. And we can also see that for the side deck, most of the cards we are not really seeing much. I thought about that, you know, just not having a side deck for testing purposes. But in this case, I think it went all right. So as you saw in the list, some of the cards were 1-offs, and the tracked were 2-off, and the rest of them were 3-offs. So the thought behind this is all the 1-offs that we're either searching or breaks for us, we're having at 1. And also the cards that I'd guess we're not seeing as much. So you know, cards as Slurry. Luckily enough, through these 50 games, I've seen it once, and it didn't go very well. We've had cards like Taking Tomborg, which I've seen 5 times, which is, well, surprising to me actually. Is a 20% win rate. I also, through testing, found out that Taking Tomborg and Boomark is actually a pretty decent combo. But yeah, generally the 1-offs we don't want to see, we want to search. But yeah, the takeaway for this, for me at least, which are both surprises and, well, not really surprises at all. But cards like Super Polymerization, I'm pretty surprised of. I know that in the extra deck, I only have 2 targets for it, and that may be a reason. But usually just going neck 1 to kind of remove stuff didn't often do me good. So I'll probably be taking that out and having extra deck space. Currently thinking about cutting the currently thinking about cutting the fusions for the Link 3 Fiendsmith for even more damage in case of the barrier. And maybe going for either Typhon or Zeus. Haven't really decided on the 15th space. Also, am actually kind of surprised that Bash didn't do well. For me, it has always been a stable 1-off in Goblins. But seeing it as, you know, often when you're playing Goblins, you don't really search it much. It's only if you have Breakout and Entrance in your hands, you're searching it, because is an extender and a level modulation for the goblins, but it really hasn't done me anything. And the games I've searched this, I haven't had a game that I can think of where I searched it, and it has won me a game. Otherwise, going over this, like, you know, like stuff also like Dark Ruler. I know I've through these 50 matches, I've only seen it 6 times. But often it hasn't really done me much either. You know, having it in starting hand in 6 games with 16% win rate, like the card not converting. I am currently thinking about cutting stuff like Dark Ruler, Super Poly, maybe even putting the Thrust and Talents down and playing a more reactive board breaker build. You know, like stuff like Enemy Controller would be good. Also for, you know, going second, you want to dodge a lot of negations, and everything that targets, we can, you know, remove it with, for example, Enemy Controller. But also, I'm kind of surprised seeing Tour Guide being as low, if you can call it that. Like 45% win rate is of course not bad, but it is a normal summon, and we want to commit to it. And I've been a little bit on the fence with Tour Guide, because I feel like, you know, using a normal summon for the Tour Guide while we have so many other normal summons, if it really is that good. Also, I'm currently tinkering with playing a Punk package. I've done that before in the past, but also having the option to play the special summon psychics. Having even more opportunities to get level 3 out without committing a normal summon, and being able to save it for cards like Dog, which is to me still surprising at a low number, for Merciless if you have another goblin in hand, and for the ace card of this pile, for some reason Gone Wild. Or in the case that we keep running more Lacrima, which is also a decent normal summon. Yeah, just to, you know, keep out as many normal summons as possible. We don't want to draw 5 normal summons, you know? We want to keep the extenders in. We want like Terratops being at 64% after 14 games have seen it. Like over half the wins I've had Homborg in hand. Sorry, Terratop in hand. Well, I don't guess you can say it like that. I've drawn it 14 times, but stuff like Terratop that we just, you know, special summon and it is free extender. I'm pretty sure the only games where it haven't won me the game, the hand has either been unplayable, you know, having Terratop and stuff like Super Poly, you know, dragging it down, or just being drolled afterwards. It is not as great. But in other words, still tinkering with the list. If you have any suggestions or cards you would want to see me try out in this list, I will of course be updating this, and when I have a prettier list, I guess I'd call it, a more usual, normal list, you know, closer to 40 cards, I'll be posting it, of course. I also have a regional here in Denmark in mid to late January, where I'm pretty sure I'll be using goblins, because I feel like still very board breaker goblins would be a deck we bring. Like, I want to say, most of my Ryzeal matches I've won just by engine. Actually, I want to show you. So what we're looking at now is what I've been playing against and how it has gone. You can also see the cards I've had in hand, well, most of them. Some of it. But as you can see, like Ryzeal 2 wins, Maliss has been 1, Maliss lost. Maliss is still iffy, but I still think that's the board breaker stuff not being represented. Stuff like Purely, of course we break Purely boards. Again here, Ryzeal, and the only reason that we lost, having, you know, 3 normal summons, not really doing much for the game that I lost. Maliss here winning too, like also 2 wins against Ryzeal Ascent, because that's a deck, of course. And this is interesting. That is the deck list for sure. But all being said, the Ryzeal matchup is so strong, and I'm not sure if, you know, it's just me playing against a worse person than me, or actually the goblins being good. Like, I'm not gonna say for sure. I can also just be trolling and the goblins are horrible, but I've just been lucky with the matchups. But I really feel like the Ryzeal matchup is, I wouldn't call it easy, because you still have to think about it, but it feels more or less lopsided. Like, there's not much the Ryzeal players can do. Even on the draw, we are able to win, but because the Fiendsmith can also play through everything, or close to at least. And the Maliss is, you know, having board breakers versus Maliss just usually wins you the game. You know, just removing the board, more or less a negate and evenly can win you the game. The talents can steal the terahertz and win you the game. Like, I don't see where we're going wrong if we are only seeing Maliss and Ryzeal. I definitely think that board breakers goblins will do great versus that. But I will try to update the deck list for the statistics for the deck that I'd expect to play. Then afterwards, after this video, I will continue building a 60 card Goblin Biker pile. Continue to find out what is possible with this, what works and what doesn't. So, with my limited amount of testing, I guess you could say, this is the list I'd probably be running. Do keep in mind, this is by far the finished list. But I definitely see the enemy controller being a thing. The Fiendsmith list, the Fiendsmith engine are definitely be cutting down. I for sure want to see it, but playing Moon and often having 2 bodies to be able to throw away doesn't make it as bad. I'm not sure about the ratios at all. Cutting out the Perulia, because most often we'd go first, right? I think. The amount of engine, I'm not really happy about. Like, we're not having too many summons here. So I'll definitely also be, as I said before, testing out the punks. Instead of playing the, what is it called? The fusions for Super Poly, I'll be testing the Agnum Day. And for this video, I'm just throwing in a Typhon. I do want to note though, that Typhon with full armored XYZ in your opponent's turn, being able to just summon it and keep them out of 3000 higher attack monster effects isn't too bad. I've pulled it off like once at my locals and it was gimmicky at best. I'll also be testing the armored XYZ spell, being able to, you know, being able to summon out the Gone Wild or the Merciless and attaching Big Kabonga to it, making it a light fiend, also is a way to get into Fiendsmith. I've seen some combos with it. Currently also thinking about cutting Breakout down to 2, even though I think it is an amazing spell card, being able to, well, stop any kind of targeting by tributing a monster. For testing, it hasn't been too great. I will of course still be testing 3 to see if it drops or goes up in the win rate. And also, I had been thinking about cutting Grand Entrance down to 1. I really felt like it was a iffy card, but it's definitely amazing against Ryzeal. So if I had to go to a tournament tomorrow for some reason, and this was the amount of testing I was allowed, this is probably the list I'll be bringing. Though keep in mind that the crossout, I'd definitely be side decking stuff like Droll and Nibiru, I guess. It isn't really that strong against this deck anymore. It feels like Nibiru really has gotten weaker, being able to summon either Gossip Shadow or High Wave King Caesar early without actually committing to a normal summon is great for this deck for sure. So all in all, I feel like this could be the end product, but I will for sure keep testing and keep you updated. If you had any thoughts or stuff you'd like to see me test out for this, please let me know down in the comments. Also, I'll try to begin streaming at some point, other than locals, which I'm currently streaming each Friday. I will try to, you know, get myself going, stream some testing, and get a little bit of outreach, you know. But this is all. I hope you enjoyed this different kind of video. Let me know if you want to see more of this testing. And yes, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.